They were all at sea. Milner, Henderson, Elliott didn't work at all.
I thought yellow. I thought yellow when I first watched it, and I thought yellow on the replay.
Mason Mount. I just do not get it. I never have, never will.
Liverpool was so off it. They made them look a lot better.
Chelsea are a mess.
Hello and welcome back to Panenka Weekly, the raunchy but relatable football podcast.
When we can't get going with these.
Hello and welcome back to Panenka Weekly, episode number 3, game week 3 of this 2022-23 Premier League season. It has been a very interesting weekend. I think when we get to the games in a second, it's all about the Sunday, but there's a lot to talk about. But as always, I am joined by my lovely co-host. I'm going to start with Rory today. Rory, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Rich. Very, very well. Excited for tonight's game. A little bit more nervous than I maybe was 8 or 9 days ago, but looking forward to the game nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely. I am well and truly in the same boat as you on that one. I'm also joined, though, by Tiges as well. How are you, Tiges?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, I am all right. I'm much fresher, more refreshed and ready to go compared to last week. So hopefully...
Excited for tonight?
I am sort of... I really hope Liverpool can be comfortable and confident, but there is a little part of me that thinks United really have something to prove, don't they? And I'm a bit worried, but we will see. We will see.
But what if United win?
Yeah, well, Klopp's got to go, hasn't he? That is a joke. We are actually just recording this episode before the Liverpool game, obviously, as you can tell by what we were just talking about. But we will put a little insert in reacting to that game a little bit later on tonight. So there will still be a little bit of Liverpool versus Manchester United chat in today's episode. And speaking of today's episode, I think we should get into it. The agenda, folks, is going to be very similar to what it's been for the past couple of episodes, where we will react to everything that has happened over this past weekend of Premier League action, as well as then looking forward to the next set of games, which there's a few interesting ones in there to talk about as well. And are we ready to get into it?
Yeah, I'm very excited. A lot happened, didn't it, this weekend?
Yeah, loads. It is. Let's start with one of those. Well, let's go around the games first of all, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail about one or two of them. But start with the early game on the Saturday. It was Spurs versus Wolves. Spurs grinding out a 1-0 win here, but I was quite impressed by Wolves. Rory?
Yeah, I thought, good win for Spurs. Didn't do anything too flashy, but still got the win. Wolves, I would worry again slightly what we've been saying kind of throughout the season so far, that they really look like they are going to struggle for goals. Pedro Neto also linked away with an Arsenal move last sort of 24, 48 hours. I mean, you've always got to take these kind of rumours with a pinch of salt, but I don't think they can be affording to lose any more attacking players.
I agree. Yeah, I think, with Wolves, it does seem like they are just lacking that little bit of cutting edge. Maybe a fully fit Raul Jimenez will change them, but I think I was quite impressed first off specifically with them. The next match, one of our 3 o'clocks, was Palace beating Villa 3-1. I can only go to one person for this game. Tiges?
Yeah, it was poor from back to front, really, wasn't it, from Villa? No plan, tactics were very poor. People just didn't seem to be putting in too much of an effort. The VAR, I didn't really buy into that too much. I think we were comfortably beaten. Palace looked really good.
Gerrard, worried about his job a little bit?
I don't know, but it does seem to be... It started off very brightly. Do you remember we had the conversation about how tactically flexible he was when he first started? We had that conversation, didn't we? And that seems to just have gone. We seem to just be trying to fit players in every different position. It doesn't seem to have a plan. No one seems to be trying that hard. Palace were just the complete opposite. It's a Zaha still. What a player.
Yeah, he started the season brilliantly. Sort of an FPL under the radar pick, I think. I might need to try and bring him in. He did go in.
Yeah, before Saturday for me. He was part of my wild card. Slight panic wild card, but nonetheless.
Wow. Game week 2 wild card.
That's what you need, mate, when you've got Darwin Núñez just been brought in. So, Zaha came in. Tony came in as well, so a couple of good transfers.
Yeah, I did see. You've had a good week. I feel hard done by the fact I had 2 Chelsea defenders, and we'll get onto their game in a little bit, won't we?
I still think Villa will be fine. Sorry, just jumping back to that. Sometimes you've got to manage expectations for a team, and Villa always get a bit silly.
Yeah.
stay up,
Yep.
be comfortable. Remember those horrible days where we really were struggling, rotting in the Championship. So I'd still just like to be safe, but I'm a bit worried. But I think we'll be okay.
Speaking of managers that you're potentially a bit worried about, Everton drawing to Forest, a bit of a late equaliser in this one as well. A home draw against Forest. Lampard, another one I think his neck might well be on that chopping block if things don't improve fairly sharpish. Rory?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose just to open up and kind of blow my own trumpet slightly, correct prediction for me last week, 1-1. But yeah, I think Forest will be the happier of the two, despite conceding, quite a late equaliser. I think they'll still be quite happy with a point there. Just gets their season off to quite a nice start, doesn't it? Picking up points in a couple of the opening games. Everton, you've really got to worry about them. They look pretty poor, don't they, this season so far? Don't really look like they've learnt a lot from last year. Still, that kind of they just don't really seem like up for the games, do they? The last 10 minutes against Villa was a bit more like it, but it's just back to type, wasn't it, on Saturday? Very, very lacklustre performance.
Yeah, as somebody who picked them to be the overachievers, I am slightly worried about that prediction at this stage.
Well, they're doing better than I thought with that point.
Do you know what? Yeah, I'm still correct on that, I think. They got a point, didn't they? The next game, bit of a barnstormer this one. 3-2 Fulham, a late Alexander Mitrovic winner to defeat Brentford at Craven Cottage. A good, entertaining game, this one, Tigers.
Yeah, fair play. Both teams really going at each other again. That's what I like about the Premier League this year. People seem to be giving it more of a go than they have in previous years. It is just a general feeling I've got. Brentford went at it. Fulham went at it. I read a stat that this is Fulham's first London derby win in 25 games. So even 3 games in, they're really sort of getting rid of some of these bad patterns, and that late winner again, Mitrovic.
Yeah, I think we might have answered the question about whether he can cut it at Premier League level this year. We thought he might be able to after his first weekend brace, but he's backed it up time and time again now. He looks very good for them.
Brentford looked good as well, to be honest. It was just a very good game.
Yeah. Next one is this one I think we might need to talk a little bit about, and I'll open up to Rory on it. But Leicester beaten at home by Southampton. Leicester are struggling. There's a massive game coming up next week where Leicester play Chelsea. Both of those teams are going to need a win. Southampton getting the win on the road at Leicester here, Rory?
Yeah, I mean, Southampton actually, it's not been too bad, has it? 4 points from 3 games compared to kind of what we maybe thought might happen there. Leicester worrying times really. I mean, they crumbled, didn't they, after being ahead against Brentford opening day. They've then been beat by Arsenal and now beat at home to Southampton, which they probably would have been banking on getting something at least from that game. But yeah, it's just really, really poor from Leicester.
Yeah. And lots of work to be done there. And I think it'll be an interesting end to this window as well for them, because it seems a little bit unsettled in the Leicester camp. The last game on the Saturday, the late kickoff, was Bournemouth at home to Arsenal, and Arsenal comfortably running out 3-0 winners here. I suppose, as people predicted, it does make me wonder a little bit more about Aston Villa as well as the team that have lost to Bournemouth.
Well, we've discussed Aston Villa in great detail already, so I'm just going to sort of ignore that point and speak about Arsenal. Well, they should have won, shouldn't they? Easy win, really. It was always going to be an easy win. Bournemouth, despite that outstanding win against Villa on the opening day of the season, I think they're going to struggle. I know they've had a couple of hard games, but they didn't offer anything in that game. Arsenal didn't really get out of second gear. Very easy win. Still don't buy into it that they're really going to be up there come the end of the season. I still think 4th is the target for them.
That was going to be my follow-up question, was are we starting to believe the Arsenal hype a little bit now? Top of the league, 9 points from 9. They do look good, but you kind of have to temper those expectations when it was Bournemouth, etc. But the movement and some of those, like Ødegaard looks great. Of course, Jesus looks really good. It is an exciting time to be an Arsenal fan, but you're not buying into it.
I just think
I'm firmly in their camp.
You're firmly in their camp.
They're my overachievers. Them and Brighton were my shout. So a great start for Arsenal, really. But you always feel like they're only 1 or 2 injuries away from having a real slide in form.
See how they react to their first hurdle. when they play City, Liverpool, and if they do get a drill in, I think that will define their season, how they come back from some of their bad results. Especially last year, didn't they? They went on a good run, they had a bad result, and it put them on a really bad spiral for a few weeks. They just need to get that out of their systems, I think, a bit quicker.
Definitely a patchy team. So I guess, yeah, I agree with you. We need to see them in their first big test, don't we? Moving through, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier, that it was all about the Sunday this weekend, because it really did explode into life with a couple of these Sunday games. I'm going to start with the one that was maybe less of a talking point, but actually there is something to discuss here. West Ham losing at home to Brighton, who continue their good start to the season with a 2-0 win at West Ham. We'll be impressed by them here, and then we'll get on to the other two games, which were really, really interesting games.
Yeah, I think West Ham have got to be worried now, haven't they? That's another home defeat. You could kind of excuse the Man City defeats, but you're a little bit more worried when they're getting beat by Brighton. But, Brighton, again, were well organised, took their chances well, and kind of the momentum rolls on for Brighton.
They need a goal scorer, don't they, West Ham?
Yeah, so they bought Skamaka. They've spent big on him. They need him to settle, and they need him to start scoring goals.
He scored midweek, didn't he? To be fair, opened his account in the qualifying games, the qualifying rounds. So
yeah, and I think he's looked quite good actually in his little cameo so far. But it's a new striker, isn't it? It's going to take a while, and I think actually for even the second half of last season with Antonio, the goals weren't exactly flowing after a magnificent start. So there's a bit of work to be done, I think, at West Ham. The next two games, and we wanted to leave these ones till the end. They did come at the end of the weekend anyway, but there's a lot to talk about with Leeds at home to Chelsea, and then the last kickoff of last Sunday, which was Newcastle against Manchester City. We like to pick out one or two games to discuss in a little bit more detail. So as well as recapping on everything else, let's talk for a little bit longer here about Leeds 3, Chelsea 0. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I've got so much to say about this. First and foremost, Chelsea are a mess, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't really know where to start. They haven't got a plan. They haven't, tactically, he's really getting found out recently, I feel. And I don't get that formation. I still don't really understand it. Was it a 4-3-3, or they seem to be putting then three at the back and then players are out of position? It seemed to be changing sort of on a whim.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, they really are lacking a little bit of that cohesion and coherence. I don't really understand what the plan is, and like you say, they just seem to be a mess at the moment. Chelsea. It must have been a bit of a false dawn last weekend where they got that draw against Spurs, and everyone sort of went, "See, they are quite good." Then this week, and yeah, all over the place. I think one thing to mention that we will definitely need to get on is Jesse Marsch has got that Leeds team performing. Some of those signings look so accustomed to that Leeds team already. You think of Brendan Aronson coming in and Tyler Adams in the midfield. They look so comfortable, and it was the stark polar opposite of Chelsea in organisation and having a plan and executing that. I was really impressed by Leeds, and likewise very, very, well, I say worried, but it was quite enjoyable to see how poor Chelsea were.
It was a credit to Jesse Marsch, wasn't it, I think, to lose their best two players and to come out like that. What a start, because we weren't confident, were we, in our first couple of podcasts the last couple of weeks. I mean, they really brought it out. I thought they were going to go down for sure before the season started, and then they had a good start. Sort of changed my mind a little bit, and yesterday they just looked outstanding.
Rodrigo again as well. Could he be one that comes into the FPL team, Rich? I know you've been banging that drum over the weekend.
I have been banging that drum over the weekend. Unfortunately, I didn't bring him in, so I've been banging the drum a little bit too late. But yeah, I think he's still one that I think I'm going to need to bring in for next week. Maybe that will be the end of his goal scoring run, but he looks like the main man in front of goal for them. Really, really impressive. The header was really good. That was a really nice free kick, and
I mean, fair play to Leeds as well. They lost Patrick Bamford earlier. I know we mentioned they lost their best two players in Rafinha and Calvin Phillips, but let's not forget that Bamford's in and out with injuries over the last sort of year as well, and they have needed somebody to step up. And Rodrigo, I mean, wow, what a turn of events he's putting in. He's just been absolutely magnificent the first few games of the season.
4-3. What a start!
Brilliant start. And actually, somebody who came in, I don't know if it was last season, the season before. It was last season, I think he came in and was a bit more of a striker in Spain. Came in and had to sort of play a bit deeper for Leeds, playing in midfield. And now he looks like a real goal threat again. He seems to be new lease of life. And long may it continue, as long as I do bring him into my FPL team.
Yeah, as good as he was, I do think the game was won in midfield. Adams and Rocker just looked so good. Almost everything Loftus-Cheek was not. Loftus-Cheek just seems to have lost a bit of bite about him. He just didn't seem as strong. He looked a little bit off the pace.
I'm not sure he's a right wing back, which is where he seems to be being played, and I'm not sure. I wasn't really sold on Conor Gallagher in the midfield. I think he looked a little bit out of his depth, which I think he was fantastic for Palace last year, but coming in and starting for Chelsea seemed like it was a little bit beyond him, which I don't know. I think he's a talented footballer, but he didn't seem comfortable in there.
Yeah, I really like Gallagher as well. I think he's a really good player, so I was surprised to see how bad he was on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Agreed.
Also, what about just looking at the amount of money they spent over the last couple of years? But look at their starting 11 on Saturday. How many of them would get anywhere near the Liverpool City starting 11?
Yeah,
I can name one. I think obviously James is a great player. You know, if you're really being generous, maybe Koulibaly, but no one else.
Wow, after Sunday.
Yeah, that was idiotic as well. The red
Ridiculous.
card was so stupid. And some of their business that they're doing
doesn't make sense.
It
Does it?
baffles me. Have you seen Chalobah might be going? Like, they've had no centre backs all summer, and that's been the big thing, to go and buy more centre backs. They spent big on Koulibaly, and now someone who actually played well for them at centre back last year, in Trevor Chalobah, looks like he's going to be leaving. It's baffling.
Again, there's a bit of a lack of a plan, isn't it? I know we spoke in quite good detail last week, so not to go over it too much, but again, lack of plan seems to be from top down all the way through to the manager. They just need to go back to basics a little bit.
And I know a lot was made of, like, a lot of memes and a lot of jokes about the Conte Tuchel thing, but he looks like he's on his last nerve. Even from the first minute in this Leeds game, Tuchel was screaming. He looks like he's struggling. Like
Under pressure.
He's not pressure, exactly. He looks like he's really under pressure, and I don't think that's going to go any way to making them better in the next couple of games. And they've got tough games. That, like we said, is a big game next weekend playing Leicester, which is must win for both teams, I almost want to say.
Rory, I've got a question for you. Mason Mount. I just do not get it. I never have, never will. He shouldn't be anywhere near a starting 11 Premier League football team.
I think that's a big I think that's a big statement, Sean. I think he is a good player, but I don't know if he's necessarily going to be sort of the main man that drives you to maybe the competitions that Chelsea are striving for. I mean, I can't get over how bad he was in the Euros final for England, which was probably one of the biggest games of his career. He was arguably the worst player on the pitch. But I don't
remember the last time he had a good game.
Yeah, he's an odd one, isn't he? He's kind of... I guess it goes back to kind of what we were discussing last week, that if they're going to play Sterling or Havertz up front, they just don't have enough goal scoring or creativity around them. And I guess Mason Mount is almost that case in point, isn't he? He's a nice footballer, but he's not going to get tons of assists, tons of goals, is he?
No, what is his best position? Really? He hasn't got too much pace, he hasn't really got an eye for a pass, he doesn't score goals.
I had similar thoughts, because I was trying to think, like, what is the deal with Mason Mount? Because he's clearly massively talented, and managers keep picking him, and Southgate loves him. But what, like you say, he's a nice footballer, isn't he? I was watching this game, and I had that exact thought. I was like, what is Mount doing here? And then he picked up the ball a couple of times, and he moved it really nicely, and he's got such a nice touch, and I feel like he can be such a key cog in a functioning machine of a team. But when the team isn't functioning, he actually ends up being a little bit more frustrating. And I think you could say that about a few of Chelsea's players. But when a team is like this, they need somebody to sort of grip it and take the initiative and win games. And they just don't have that player in their team.
That is the worry, I think. I think that is the real worry with Chelsea. But it's just so much seems to be sort of off. I know we mentioned sort of the running numbers on the Brentford and United game, but they just really didn't seem at it. There was no... I mean, you can't excuse the mistake by Mendy. Obviously, that just gives Leeds an absolute golden opportunity. But there was so much other stuff that goes wrong. There's even like these underlying plots. Like, why on earth is James playing right over back three when he's probably one of the best players in the world at right wing back? It just makes little to no sense, does it?
Yeah,
no, I can't get my head around it. That's why I said earlier, it kind of looked like sometimes they move to a four at the back, but almost organically. if that makes sense. They almost sort of sensed players
Well,
were
I think
almost
that's-
reverting to their own positions when it wasn't the plan of the manager.
Yeah, I think that might well be the plan, because I think you see a lot of teams doing that type of setup where you start with a back three, or you start with a four and then it becomes a three. I think Newcastle did it quite effectively. If you want to contrast it to their setup, they played Dan Burn as a left back, but really it was a back three when they went forward because Trippier bombed on forward. But I think it might have been part of the plan, but the problem was none of the plan was working, and it ended up looking, as you said earlier, it ended up looking like a mess. And again, I think we always need to go, we talk about the big teams a lot on these and how they're poor, but I think we always need to flip it back again and just talk about how good Leeds were. They were excellent, really, really impressive.
I listened to a few interviews of Jesse Marsch. He seems like a real nice guy, quite down to earth, and was talking a lot about his experiences, and I quite liked him. I'm quite worried about us actually starting to like Leeds, but I think, if they keep going like that, they're going to turn into a popular team.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that there'll be many other northern fan bases agreeing with you there, Sean. But
You should Gabby Bonlahor on TalkSport. Even he's coming round to Leeds.
wow,
And they hate him.
Wow. And Klopp hates Gabby Agbonlahor as well, which was a nice thing about the weekend that I enjoyed. Klopp going at Gabby Agbonlahor.
yeah, that was
Bit left
fabulous.
field, that one, but enjoyed it. One thing I didn't predict for today's podcast was a Tiges Jesse Marsch romance, but it could be the start of a beautiful, beautiful thing. Let's move on.
If you're listening, Jesse Marsch, ring in, give us your thoughts.
Leave a comment, and if you are listening on YouTube, anybody this goes to, not just Jesse Marsch, please do leave us those comments down below. We'd love to dig in to some juicy comments. Moving on to the final game of the weekend, except for this Manchester United-Liverpool game of tonight. And it was a corker, another barnstormer, 3-3 between Newcastle and Manchester City. And can I just say, go on Newcastle. They had a go and went for it. You talked about it earlier, Tigers, about teams seem to be just having a bit of a go this season. I guess Leeds is an example of this too. And Newcastle, I was, again, very impressed with them. And yeah, there's an amazing Premier League football game in the end. 3-3.
Yeah, I thought Newcastle were absolutely brilliant. I mean, Alan St. Maximan, he may go quiet now until Christmas, which is kind of his nature, but he was absolutely brilliant, wasn't he? I mean, he'd be giving Kyle Walker absolute nightmares. He's so direct, he's so tricky, pacey. I mean, the Almiron goal was it was a bit of a dodgy one, wasn't it? Just kind of like bounced off him and went in, but
Just on that, I tweeted saying, come on Newcastle, a bit of end product now. And then within a minute, they did that. I went, yep, that's it, textbook. In off the knee. Like
it was brilliant with it. He's just like gone for a diving header. It's gone under him and just hit his thigh and just rolled in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant. But yeah, Newcastle, fair play to them. I mean, they might be a little bit disappointed that they let the 2-goal lead slip, but going into the game, they would have taken a point, and I thought they were absolutely brilliant. And for City, that might come out to be a massive point come the end of the season, coming back from 2 behind when they really didn't look at their best.
So I was just going to say, I think on City as well, there is still a lot to be said about their fighting resilience in a football match. There are a lot of teams with less talented footballers, albeit, that would have given up at 3-1 and that would not have been a game. But there was, I mean, maybe this is the Liverpool part of me speaking, but they were 3-1 down and I was absolutely not ruling them out still winning that match, because even though he has these amazing, talented, expensive footballers at his disposal, Pep has managed to foster a bit of a culture there where they do not give up. We saw it so many times, frustratingly, last season. They were never out of it, even though they did have an off day, and they did get outplayed for large proportions by Newcastle's setup, the way that they worked it. It was, they worked hard to fight back, and they can do that, can't they, from any situation, it seems.
Yeah, they are such a good side, but it just goes back to that kind of thought of who's the next one off the bench, who's the next game winner they've got. I mean, there was a bit of an element when they went 1-0 up, and it was kind of a here we go again, wasn't it? But
yeah.
Fair play to Newcastle. I was really impressed by them.
Yeah, to be honest, this Newcastle performance scared me. I mean, I got it massively wrong last week. I thought this was going to show the daylight that still existed between these two teams. But if you just based it on this one game, they actually look pretty on par. I mean, how many teams would actually avoid a crumbling after going 1-0 down to City in the first 5 minutes? Not many.
Not many.
The next 50 minutes was probably the best performance I've seen from Newcastle for years and years and years. Even in the glory days of Alan Shearer, when they were sort of getting in the Champions League, I don't remember having them that sort of quality. It was absolutely brilliant. Like you said, Maximan, he was just electric, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's brilliant. When Alan Saint-Maximin is on it, he is a fantastic footballer. Like Rory did allude to, though, he can have these. He's not always on it in the way that he was, but I think maybe a bit of credit to Eddie Howe here as well. We've in the past had a load of praise towards him. Kind of seems to have gone a bit more quiet on him, but I think the job he's done with this Newcastle team needs to be mentioned, because that setup, the way that they approached that game with Manchester City there is so brave. The way they set up and the way they went for it and had a go. They had, like I mentioned it earlier, but Dan Burn playing left back so that he could tuck in, become a 3. Trippier was bombing on. If you look at the average positions, Trippier is one of their most advanced players on that right hand side, because I think right hand side they do lack a little bit of going forward, and they've got the opposite of Saint-Maximin is so high and so direct on that other side. But having Dan Burn slot in on that left-hand side meant that Saint-Maximin could go and do it. They've got Joel Linton, who in that midfield role has so much energy, and he comes to that left-hand side and he carries the ball from there. There's so much to like about the way they played, and it's so smart the way that because City are going to play with this Kyle Walker and Cancelo coming inside and being a little bit more narrow, and Kyle Walker doesn't want to go forward and they didn't let him, but Saint-Maximin was dragging him out, and then he had runners in behind. Almiron was just buzzing around. So much to like in the way they played. It was so brave, and I almost want to look at it and think, that's the blueprint right there. That's what other teams need to go and do. If you're going to get a result and get points off City, it isn't this low block that Bournemouth did last week. I don't think that's the way to beat City. I think going and having a go and trying to give them a bit of a bloody nose and then hold on until the end might be the way to go and play them.
But also, talking about blueprints, I think Newcastle have taken it one step further in just the blueprint in general for how they're going about things, especially when you get a new owner in with a fair bit of money. As obviously a Villa fan, a team who has massively outspent Newcastle in recent years, you can't not get jealous. Newcastle have got an identity. Tactically, they're really flexible, and every single one of their players are playing at 100% effort.
Yeah, that they don't seem a million miles away. There's 1 or 2 additions in there. Maybe sort out the right hand side. They've got world class footballers in there now. Bruno Guimaraes and Saint-Maximin, when he's on it like that, they are top footballers, and they're not that far away. Maybe I'm getting a little bit carried away, but I think
I would be maybe in the camp of we're getting a little bit carried away there with the talk of top 4, but you never know. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're seeing it this season, but you can see the foundations that are being laid down there, can't you?
Yeah, you can see a plan. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 3 years to see them up there. And if this becomes a top 6 game in the future, it's quite exciting, isn't it? We've had quite a few poor top 6 games in years and years gone by. Both teams really settling back, sort of happy for a draw. But if this is a game like that, I'm quite excited. They just really went for each other, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
And City, to be fair, Newcastle, great performance, but like you touched upon earlier, you've got to give City a lot of credit. 3-1 down again, and they just came right back into it. Bernardo Silva is just a joy.
Yeah, please, Barcelona, if you're listening, get that bid in. Please take him away from the Premier League. But yes, I know I'm speaking as a Liverpool fan when I say that. Yeah, he was really good. I think City, does this open the door a little bit in terms of I think a lot of people had the opinion of, okay, City have won the league again then, because of the first 2 game weeks they were obviously really good. Does this open the door a little bit for you?
I don't think so. Maybe? No, not in my opinion, because I think Newcastle are going to take points off a lot of teams this season. Like when Arsenal go there, that'll show us really how good they are. And would you like to go there right now, Liverpool? Would you be confident?
Newcastle? No. Well, I'll tell you after the United game later.
Yeah, you see what I mean. So I think looking back, City will think, great point that.
Yeah, quite possibly, especially from the context of being 3-1 down. Great free kick, by the way, wasn't it, by Trippier?
Unbelievable. Resurrected memories of Croatia, didn't it?
Oh yeah, good times. And it wasn't good times.
Obviously, on Trippier, I think VAR got that decision quite right. When it first happened, my first thought was red card. That's a vile tackle, and then when it was slowed down, it actually didn't look that bad. So I thought VAR got it right, to be honest.
This big talking point, this, and I've had lots of discussions with lots of people, and people are falling on either side of this. Now, interestingly here, my initial read of it as I watched it was yellow card. It's just a trip. And I find it quite interesting that your initial read of it was, that's a red card, that looks vile, whereas mine was the opposite. And then I watched it on the replay. I was like, okay, it's definitely going to be overturned. But actually, maybe it's a bit worse than I first thought it was. It's a really...
So you flipped around the other way?
Almost, not quite. I think I even tweeted, I said, that's surely going to be overturned. That's the softest red. It seemed really soft to me. But I actually almost... I could almost see why he'd given a red after seeing the replay. So I was like, okay, it was actually quite high, and there was more to it maybe. I think the ref obviously looked at it to start with and thought that he'd caught him high up the leg and, with his studs, and actually then it would have been a red. But for me, it just seemed like a cynical trip, and it was a yellow all day. I've seen so many people say, though, and arguing either way. What was... So you think yellow, Tiges? Rory, what did you think?
I thought yellow. I thought yellow when I first watched it, and I thought yellow on the replay. It's a very cynical tackle, but I didn't think there was that. I guess you kind of need to go, is it endangering an opponent? Is it overly malicious in terms of, really going out to try and hurt him? I didn't really think it was either of those. It wasn't like a scissor action to it or, two-footed or anything like that. It was just a very cynical, I'm going to stop the attack here and now, and the way I do that is by maybe going slightly higher than you would normally. It's more
like he tried to... Yeah, I don't think he tried to catch him with his studs, did he? He tried to catch him high, but just so that he could chop him down rather than anything else. I think maybe people's thinking that it was a red are based off some... We've had a couple of these decisions not too long ago. We had the Xhaka one who got sent off, and we had the Allen one. Do you remember towards the end of last season? I think it was against... Was it against Newcastle? It might well have been.
I think it might have been.
And maybe that's coloured people's opinions on it a little bit, but I don't...
The Allen one's slightly different now, I think, because there is more of a... That was a lot lower, wasn't it? That was more ankle high.
Yeah.
But there was definitely more of like a stamping action on that one. He's kind of...
Agreed.
He's stretched...
Dangerous.
And they're the ones that in slow-mo you go, oh, God, that's close to being a leg breaker.
Yeah.
Whereas it was totally the opposite for Trippier, I thought. Yeah, he's caught him high, but it's never really going to cause any major injury, if that makes sense.
But what is the definition of high in this regard? Is it down to the referee's interpretation?
I guess anything over the ball's quite high, isn't it?
Anything over the ball.
Yeah,
so I mean, if you followed the rules to the letter of the law, maybe you could have justified it being a real push, or just not.
Same. That's kind of where I was at with it. Was I've just watching it without hearing what anyone else thought on it. I was like, oh, that shouldn't have been a red. That needs to be overturned to be a yellow. Then I watched it again. I was like, yeah, it's still just about a yellow, but maybe I can see why he gave the red to start with. But well done, they overturned it. Fair play. And then actually reading other people's almost arguing that it should have been a red, I was like, oh, maybe then. Maybe it isn't quite as cut and dry as I thought it was, but it's a definite talking point, contentious one. Seems to have raised a bit of debate as well. So,
which is always good.
Good chat.
And it's good when things, people got different points of view, but it proves how hard it is for a referee.
Yeah.
We've all watched that probably 15 times now, and we change our mind. Different people bring up good points and good views, and it sort of makes you think again. So it's tough to be a referee. So it is 21:58 on Monday the 22nd of August, which means we have jumped back into this podcast just a few minutes after the end of Manchester United versus Liverpool. Rich, understandably...
Right after the final whistle, and I'm trying to be enthusiastic in this because I've just seen Liverpool lose to Manchester United. Very disappointing. Tigers, what did you make of it?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Rich, for jumping back on, because you get your best interviews from the managers, don't you, straight after the game when the adrenaline is still pumping, the emotions are still high. So I'm glad I've got you, to be honest.
I feel like I'm going to start blaming things like the pitch being dry. I can see why Klopp does it now.
Yeah, no, we can finally relate. I think it was... I mean, we got to start with the offside, haven't we, really?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's irked me the most, but I know it's silly and it's because it's against my team, but it's another one of those where... Are we relying on these blurry, fuzzy pictures of offsides, and then sort of the thing that actually broadly, I'm actually fine with that being onside because it's so close that it doesn't really matter. The Are we saying he gained an advantage? He didn't, did he? Broadly, I'm okay with that. The thing that is actually annoying me about football with this is that we see these blurry images from VAR and these sketchy lines on there, and then sort of the reaction from everyone is, nah, actually he is onside. They've proved it there. Well, really, they've not really proved anything. I don't think that's a scientific finding that they've made there. That's what annoys me, because I think of the Jesus one in the Arsenal game on Saturday, and are they giving the attacker the advantage, or like, I don't think they are. It's just, it still seems a mess. But yeah, I'm also very, very aware that it's gone against Liverpool.
We haven't had time to properly digest and look back, but watching the game live, I thought straight away it was offside.
Yeah.
When it happened live, and then when they showed the VAR, I still thought that's offside, and then it just appeared to me that the photo of it, there was a fraction of a second before he actually let the ball go after that.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm sure they did the photo a little bit too early.
Yeah, this has been a problem for a while. They have the frames per second on the cameras is shocking, that it jumps forward way too much. I don't know why they've not invested in better cameras to do this with, but that's a separate issue, because it is all down to where they decide to pause it, and then it's how that particular frame looks and how blurry it is. We could do a whole episode talking about the problems with the offside lines. What was good about it is that they made a quick decision, and if it is a general trend that if it is as close as that, you give the advantage to the attackers, I'm actually fine with that. It's the inconsistency.
If it becomes a thing, if it becomes a thing, but there'll be similar ones to that which are not given.
Yeah, there was on Saturday. If you look at the Gabriel Jesus one against Villa, yeah, and it just feels a bit convenient that it's at Old Trafford, and the I don't know, the narrative of the game is that United are back here, they've put in a performance now. It's 2-0 now, and but it's saying.
Yeah, well, do you remember Villa at Old Trafford last season when the VAR started looking at one thing, and then it moved on to something else, and then it moved on to something else, and eventually it got them, for something.
Jacob Ramsey was involved. Yeah, I remember.
Eventually, if you look hard enough for something, you're probably going to find it.
Yeah,
it seems to happen at Old Trafford. But I mean, moving on to the actual game itself, what were your thoughts on Liverpool? Yeah,
I was going to say that we're talking about this offside decision as if it really was the defining factor, when really it was Liverpool were really poor. United were good, I think. I actually think it might be a bit of a false dawn for United, because they were really up for it. It was the Liverpool game, all of this. I wonder if they'll back that up next weekend. I actually think the bigger takeaway from the game was how poor Liverpool were and how much they're crying out for a centre midfielder. They were all at sea. Milner, Henderson, Elliott didn't work at all. I think Elliott looked really good. He looks bright. I think he's a fantastic footballer, but Henderson in 2022 alongside Milner, they couldn't get them off the pitch quick enough, and that says it all, doesn't it? It's a real problem, and I'm sounding a little bit like Yadar on Twitter here, but go and sign a midfielder, please, because it just
that was a note I wrote.
Crying out for it.
Yeah, the midfield just didn't work for Liverpool today, and Milner, you never want to say it, do you? But are his legs starting to go slightly? Should he be starting in these games?
Well, no, it's by complete default that he's in their team, because there's no one else. Keita's got silly string for ligaments. You've got Thiago, a wind will see him being out for 4 to 6 weeks. There's no other options in there. So what is the answer? What do Manchester United do in this situation? They go and sign another footballer, don't they? What do City do? They go and sign another footballer. Liverpool don't seem to do that unless they can get the right man in. But at this stage, and I think we actually saw it in Klopp's pre-game, he did some interviews where he was actually talking about, it's not up to him to sign the players now, which is a big change from he's happy with the midfield he's got. So I do wonder if they go and do something. I personally feel like they need to go and do something.
Okay, so quick question, yes or no? No thinking about it. Casemiro, yes or no?
Casemiro. Casemiro, yes. I would have absolutely taken him at Liverpool, but
a lot of problems. Maybe they didn't know he was available, but I thought he could fit it in quite nicely. He would have made a big difference today.
Yeah, I think the problem is the price and the wages he's on, which doesn't fit what Liverpool do at all, does it? I think he's gone into United and he's going to be one of their top earners, which for
sort of 300,000 for 5 years or something, so which is not sustainable, is it?
No, he's on more than Salah, which it just doesn't work, does it?
No, not at all. But we've got to talk about United. They look better than they have done for a long, long time, didn't they? It's mad what Rashford can do when he actually tries.
Yeah, but it's mad what they can do when they set up in a system that kind of makes sense, which I don't think it did against Brentford, and I don't think it did in any of their games. Any of their 2 games this season, where it was that you talked about it actually, with those round pegs in square holes, or whatever the saying is, where it's moving players about, and you've got Christian Eriksen playing as a 6, but suddenly today they had runners up front and pace in behind, and they had a bit of a plan to go. Like, it wasn't a technical plan by any stretch. It was just, let's have fast players who can press, and let's be bright and run around a lot more than we have done against other teams this season, and it worked. And yeah, I go back to it that maybe Manchester United were definitely a lot better than they have been, but also Liverpool was so off it. They made them look a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, even in defence, Liverpool looked physically quite weak at times. You know, that opportunity that Rashford had where he sort of just walked through a couple of tackles.
Yeah. It looks
Gomez just
so
left
many
a
holes.
bit of a weak leg. Yeah, it didn't look very good, did it?
Yeah, so
but
many holes.
Fair play to Ten Hag. I mean, it still takes a brave man to drop Ronaldo and Maguire, I think, at this point. I know a lot of people were calling for Maguire, but especially standing by him as captain and then dropping him, I think that's a big, brave decision. You know, not starting Ronaldo, so fair play to him on that front.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think and it's the right call on both of those things, because I think you've got to be brave in those. And to be honest, it's what a lot of people have been saying, and he's now finally been brave enough to do it. It's going to be interesting to see what goes on in the next few weeks, because there's going to be... Ronaldo's not going to be happy with sitting on that bench.
Because the worry was, well, they haven't got anyone like Ronaldo to score goals. But it kind of worked today, didn't they? Maybe Rashford up front is that answer, at least until January. Yeah,
potentially. We'll see what happens with them. I think they're looking like they're going to go and get Anthony, aren't they? And maybe some other players too. So we will see.
So, final question. What do you think Liverpool have to do, if anything, before the end of the transfer window?
Go and buy a Moises Caicedo from Brighton if you can't get Bellingham, or just go and put the money up and get Bellingham now. Like, money talks in football, and if they're going to spend it next year, then they might just because of the injuries, they might need to do it now. I think they need a lift. The fans are going to need a lift, because these things can turn toxic pretty quickly, and if it's like screaming in your face as loudly as this is, we saw it actually with the season before last with having no centre backs. Then they go and sign Kanate, and it seems to fix it. So if it seems this obvious and the club don't do it, and then there's results like this, it can become toxic quite quickly, and they need to avoid that.
It feels similar, doesn't it? And you got into the top 4, and was it the last day, 2 weeks before the end? It was very, very close, and you had a real good run at the end, didn't you? So you could have slipped out of the Champions League. So yeah, you're right. You've got to be careful.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh well, on to the next one, Rich. Don't worry about it.
All right, so I think now we've rounded off last weekend's action. It's time now to look ahead to the upcoming fixtures and another packed schedule of Premier League action coming up from this coming weekend. Then we'll start and we'll get our predictions lodged here. I'll go to both of you. We'll get our predictions in. If you want to add any more detail, or if you have anything to say about these fixtures, please just jump in. But we'll start with the 12:30 on Saturday. We've got Southampton at home to Manchester United. I think a lot will depend on how United go tonight against Liverpool, won't it? But how do we think this one is going to go? Southampton have looked pretty good. Tigers, what do you reckon?
I think this is Man United's start of the season, to be honest. I think they'll lose tonight. Casemiro, red card, 67 minutes. But apart from that, Man United 3-1.
Okay, Rory?
Yeah, I think Man United will win. And as Sean said, Casemiro's debut, but I'm going to go for 2-1 Man United.
I'm going to go for 1-1. I think their trebles will continue. I'm maybe wishful thinking. I'm going to go with that. Next game is Brentford at home to Everton. A struggling Everton team going to Brentford, who also lost this past weekend. Rory, what do you reckon?
Yeah, Brentford back at home. I think they'll have enough to beat Everton. I am going to go for 2-1 to Brentford. I think they will keep that momentum going that they've built up early in the season and maybe banish the demons from the weekend against Fulham. Another
loss for Everton, in your view. Tigers?
Yeah, I was going to say 2-1, so I'll say 2-0 just to mix it up, but I think they'll be comfortable.
I've backed Everton all season, so I'm going to go 3-1 Everton.
It's going to work eventually.
One of these weeks is going to be correct. Next game is I think this is a very interesting fixture. Brighton at home to Leeds. Two teams that on this past weekend's evidence look pretty good. Tigers first, Brighton Leeds.
It would be easy just to say a draw, I think, here, with both teams flying high, but I'm gonna go for Brighton just because they're at home. I think that will just give them that little emphasis, extra emphasis, but I think it'll be a close game.
Okay, I think I'll go with you on that one. I think I'm going to go with a 1-0 Brighton, but as you say, very close. Rory?
Yeah, I think this one is very tricky. I'm kind of flip-flopping between a draw and a Brighton win, but I'm going to go for 1-0 as well, Rich. I think Brighton home win.
The next one is one I touched upon earlier, and I think we should maybe go into a little bit more detail on this one because two teams that are crying out for a win at this stage. Chelsea are at home to Leicester. Let's hear from you first, Tigers.
Well, first and foremost, Fofana, who's he going to be playing for?
Yeah.
That might go through. I mean, I don't know how much difference it'll make. This is the sort of game I think Chelsea will come through it.
Yeah.
Leicester they are lacking confidence. They're lacking players. It almost feels like no one wants to be there at the moment, and that goes right to Rodgers. He doesn't seem to be his usual annoying self. I don't know whether he's just lost the love of it a little bit at the moment. But I think Chelsea are going to win, and it puts Leicester really far behind, and it really makes them start to worry.
Yeah, it does seem a little bit sad at Leicester at the moment, doesn't it? I think, actually, just thinking about this, is this not the perfect fixture for Chelsea right now? Off the back of that Leeds loss, going and playing Leicester at home, another a team that's really struggling, that seems to have lost all that self-belief. This might just be the perfect game for them. So I think I'd be leaning towards Chelsea as well here at home. Maybe just seeing a few more of those signs that we saw against Spurs. But yeah, like I said before, they both need a win here. What do you reckon, Rory?
Yeah, I think Chelsea will get the win. I mean, I'm looking at Leicester, and you'd arguably say that their best performance was maybe even against Arsenal when they lost. But
yeah.
They just look like a team that's sort of really, really low on confidence. Like Sean says, so many people look like they don't want to be there. They've been linked with moves away. It might just be the perfect fixture just to kickstart Chelsea again. And I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to Chelsea. And maybe we might see the start of the Kai Havertz and Sterling goals.
Interesting.
Maybe. One thing I will say is, sometimes when there's no pressure on the game, because Leicester might go into it thinking, it might be a good catalyst for them.
Free hit.
If they get free hit, but if they can get a result, could kickstart their season.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it's semi-related to this, but we talked about Gerrard earlier. We've talked a little bit about Rodgers now. Who's going to lose their job first then? Which manager is going to be the first one to get the chop?
But it could be Rodgers, couldn't it, the way he's going? I mean, you wouldn't have thought that maybe a few weeks ago, but is it just kind of one of those times where we've saw plenty of players move on at Leicester, and it is kind of just time to maybe take stock, get somebody fresh in and kind of go again? But you'd also really worry about maybe Frank Lampard and which direction are Everton going in. Gerrard again struggling. I mean, there's a whole multitude of managers who might kind of pull the trigger first, but let's see maybe how Leicester get on this weekend. But if they keep turning in these poor performances, how long will they give Rodgers?
Yeah. Sort of why I mentioned it now, yeah.
I think Rodgers will be safe just because he's built up quite a lot of goodwill, and Leicester seem to give people a little. I mean, they have got rid of managers, haven't they, in the past? But they seem to be a bit better than certain other teams. I just feel like he's done an okay job up to now, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. There seems to be, so I think that will give him a bit more time, at least enough to get outstay Lampard. I think he's got to be the next one. He looks like really out of his depth. Before
Gerrard.
Oh, Gerrard's doing a great job, mate. No, it's hard to say, isn't it? Villa had that win against Everton, which really has helped, because if Villa win next week, you're right back in it. They got a catalyst, whereas Leicester could have a win, and it's still, there just seems to be a lot more still going on, if that makes sense. That's just why I think Gerrard will have a little bit more time. They'll give Gerrard till Christmas, I think. Lampard, I'm not convinced, but also Ten Hag has got to be an outsider.
I was going to mention him. Is Ten Hag in
if he loses tonight and then doesn't get a result against Southampton?
I think the thing that's going to help Ten Hag here is the focus on the ownership and the Glazers and everything. That he doesn't seem to be bucking too much of that blame, does he? But again, if he does lose heavily to Liverpool here, if he does go and continue to struggle, I think he has to come into that conversation. We talked about it a little bit last week, didn't we? That there is still more he could get out of those players, surely.
So just on that, sorry, just one quick point. Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah.
If Abramovich was still there, I mean, we don't know how cutthroat these new owners are.
Yeah, this is true.
I don't think he'd be a million miles off. All it takes is a couple more losses.
Yeah, I don't think a new owner coming in and spending a load of money and seeing them lose 3-0 to Leeds, I don't think would have impressed him too much, especially a Leeds team that has a load of Americans in it with an American manager. And everything. Like,
probably get him in, wouldn't they?
Jesse
Marsch would be the new Chelsea manager. That excited me too much. Got to be excited about that. But what a manager.
Jesse Marsch to Villa when Gerrard goes?
No, I'm not sure about that. I like Gerrard. Backing him. You got to back your manager until it's too late, I think.
Yeah, until your boy Jesse comes in. Let's move through to the next game then, which again it comes down to how they get on tonight, I think. But this surely, if you're a betting person, is a 3 points to Liverpool. They are at home to Bournemouth in a 3:00 here at Anfield. We've seen how Bournemouth have struggled against these big teams. Is there any other result that happens here, Tigers?
You can't see it, can you? This has got to be a Salah captain in your fantasy team. Trent a few assists, 4 or 5 probably.
Yeah, do you agree, Rory?
Yeah, I do really fancy Liverpool to muller somebody soon, and if it's not United tonight, which we hope, I think it might be Bournemouth at the weekend. A couple of players back from injury and just maybe a bit of feel good after beating United tonight, and then Bournemouth are the next ones on the list. Yeah,
beat United tonight, beat Bournemouth next weekend. Title form, isn't it? Straight back into the conversation, and in the conversation with Manchester City, who's our next game. They are at home to Crystal Palace, another 3:00. Rory, what do you reckon for this one?
I mean, what a brilliant record Palace normally have against City, but I think they might just be playing them at the wrong time off the back of that Newcastle game. I'm going to go for a home win, 2-0.
Yeah, Tigers?
Yeah, I think City will win. Although Palace are in good form, aren't they?
Yeah,
It'd be great, wouldn't it, if Palace went there and got something?
It really
good
would.
For the league.
It really would. I'd like to see them go and be a bit more enterprising and go for it. Go and copy what Newcastle did this week. That'd be quite nice to see. I don't know if going to go and do that at the Etihad is maybe a step too far, but Palace's record against City, as Rory says there, is really good. They've done really well in the past. So
they've earned the right to try, haven't they? They've earned the right to. If they come out and really attack them and then get done,
yeah,
I don't think anyone would criticise them too much.
No, I think what they almost need to set up, and they've got that counter-attacking threat. You've got Zaha in brilliant form. You've got Eze in the middle there, and Elise. They've got really good footballers who can get on the ball and hurt teams like City, like they did against Liverpool. So maybe we're writing them off a little bit quickly here, but saying all of that, City win for me. The 5:30 on the Saturday is Arsenal at home to Fulham, a London derby. Arsenal, will they continue their fine form? Will it be 4 from 4? I think it probably will, although Fulham have been really good. Maybe the Mitrovic threat will get Fulham something here. What do you reckon, Tigers?
I'm going to go for a draw here.
Okay.
I think Arsenal are going to, like I said, I'm not buying into it as much as everybody else is at the moment. I think they're going to come through. They've got a couple of challenges coming up in the next couple of months. I mean, they've got a nice run of fixtures in the immediate weeks, but I just feel like Fulham will get something here. Just got a feeling.
I'm going to predict that Rory thinks this is going to be a comfortable win for Arsenal.
You may well be correct, Rich. Yeah, I do think Arsenal will get the win here. They just seem in such a good spot at the moment, don't they? I do think Fulham will make a game of it. I think that Fulham are going to be that kind of team that does, well, until they maybe get a couple of pastings, go at everyone and just try and pick up as many points and score as many goals as possible. It'd be an interesting test if Saliba plays, the young lad, against Mitrovic. That'll be quite an interesting little battle, but I'm going to go for 3-1 to Arsenal. Yeah,
I'm going to go Arsenal home win in this one as well. Let's say 2-0, and fairly comfortable. I was just thinking as well, it is the darkest timeline at the moment, isn't it? With Arsenal and Spurs being quite good at football. Let's move
and Leeds.
And Leeds. Oh, what is going on? And Liverpool not won a game yet. Sunday, we've got Villa at home to West Ham. I'll go to you, Tigers, first of all, because it is Villa. So what do you reckon?
Great time to play him, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we'll, the way we play, if we play how we should play, get our fast players on the ball, I think we'll cause them problems. I just hope this isn't the turning point. West Ham are still a good team. They started really badly, so again, they're probably going to pace someone soon. I really hope it's not us. But but things can change so quickly. If we win that game, if we beat West Ham, it's not the worst start to the season, really. 2 wins out of 4.
Yeah, all things considered, yeah, you'd be okay with it.
But I think, again, not sitting on the fence, I just think this is set up for a draw.
A draw. Rory?
Yeah, this is one that really, I think any of the 3 results are really in play here, aren't they? But I also think it may well be a draw. I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1. I am going to go 1-0 West Ham. Not sure why I think that. Maybe they grind it out. I'm just throwing things out there, really. 1-0 West Ham. If I'm correct, I'm a genius. Next game is Wolves at home to Newcastle. We discussed Newcastle in great detail earlier in today's episode. Wolves, we did touch upon it. Did, for me, look really impressive in that first half against Spurs, but did fall off around the 60th minute. I think Nunes, the new signing for them, coming in, looks really good. Did seem to run out of legs a little bit for me, and maybe with Jimenez coming back from the injury, maybe we'll see a bit more from Wolves here. But I think maybe Newcastle will continue their upwards trend and nick the result here. What do you reckon, Rory?
Yeah, this again is one that you really wouldn't be surprised maybe if Wolves do kickstart their season. But Newcastle coming off such a good performance, can they keep the momentum flying? It's a real difficult one to call this.
Yeah.
Again, I think it might well be a draw. I think we might be seeing another 1-1 here.
Yeah. Tykes?
I think a draw.
Okay. That is nice and short and to the point. We like it. Quite literally to the point. Final game of our upcoming weekend is the 4:30 on the Sunday, which is Forest hosting Spurs. Forest, very entertaining, I think is probably the word. Spurs grinding out those wins so far. Can we see them grinding out another win here, Tigers?
I think Forest are going to walk into Conte's trap and he's going to teach them a bit of a lesson tactically. I think they're going to come out and hit them, and Tottenham are going to sit back and then hit them on the break, and Son's are going to enter the party.
So Son's been poor for me this.
Yeah, really struggled a bit, didn't he, at the weekend?
He looks tired, is my sort of read of it. So I think we are waiting on him to come to life a little bit.
He doesn't feel like the main man at the moment, does he? Maybe that. Some players love other than that. The last couple of years, it's sort of been him. Yeah. He carried them last year, didn't he? At points.
Yeah, he did.
So maybe the fact they got more players coming in similar positions just.
He is the one that keeps getting dragged as well. Conte seems to really be liking leaving Kulusevski on, and when he's looking at bringing Richarlison on, it's Son that's making way, and you wonder how much longer it's going to be until he thinks, actually, I want to give Richarlison a start. And does he follow trend and drop Son?
Yeah, I think I've spoken to a few Spurs fans who were a bit surprised that Son got the start in this one. It seemed like the right fit in this past weekend, so with the Wolves game. A lot of people thinking that Richarlison might have got the start then, so I wouldn't be shocked.
I think it's a bit early for that. I think that's a bit unfair.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a dropping.
You've got to let people have a couple of games. Well, if it's give him a rest for a couple of games, like you said, looks a bit tired, then fair enough. But I wouldn't want to drop him. At this point, if that makes sense.
Like, how bad were some of his deliveries from set pieces at the weekend?
Yeah,
he just really looks off the pace at the moment.
Yeah, saying that I thought Perisic was poor first half, and I think he's their best player by the end of the game. So these things can turn, and I wouldn't be shocked. Heung-min Son is obviously a quality footballer. Wouldn't be shocked.
Strange you say that. I was listening because I was in the car at this point, so I was listening to it on, I think it was TalkSport, and they were raving about him.
Perisic.
First half. Yeah.
First half, I think. Yeah, no. For me, it was the way Wolves set up completely stifled Spurs first half, and it was because it was that left hand side with Son and Perisic. It didn't seem like it was functioning at all to me. Second half, to their credit, he turned it around. I think Perisic got forward a lot more and did look really, really dangerous. I think he was their best player by the end, but yeah, they did have to turn it around from the start. Okay.
Tottenham win.
Tottenham win. Thank you for that. Rory?
Yeah, I'm going to go Tottenham win as well, 2-1.
Okie dokie. I will also agree that one's going to be a Tottenham win. We will keep up to date with our predictions. We'll find out if we get any of them right. I'm sure that basically the way that we're doing this is the following week. If you've got it correct, you need to shout out and blow your own trumpet, as Rory did earlier on. That, though, does conclude our conversation about our upcoming games this weekend, and it does also conclude our podcast for this week. That is episode 3 of Panenka Weekly. Once again, I do ask you, if you are watching on YouTube, or I should say listening really on YouTube, please do leave us those comments down below, subscribe to the channel, and also I guess go and follow the Twitter account. We're going to try and put some more content out on our Twitter account too. Lots of discussions there. Thank you so much for listening today. Gents, say goodbye.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed that. Great chat, guys.
See you next week. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye. Rich, you've got 10 questions. I can only answer yes or no. Guess my player.
Does he play in the Premier League?
Yes.
Okay. Does he play for one of the top 6 teams?
No.
Does he play in blue?
No.
Not blue. Not sure if that's a good question or not.
Already ruled out Man City already. So.
City and Chelsea already gone, so he doesn't play for Leicester. That's good.
You could have just said, does he play for Leicester?
Does he play for Leicester? No, damn. Does he play for a team that finished in the bottom 10 last season?
Yes.
Does he play for a Northern?
No.
Does he play for Aston Villa?
Yes.
Is he
You can see why I was tempted to say yeah when you said a top 6
yeah. Is he a defender?
No.
Is he a midfielder?
Yes.
Is he Brazilian?
No. Good question, that though.
Well, that's Douglas Luiz and Coutinho then, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Is he British?
Yes.
Is he English?
No. However, I forgot to say at the beginning of the game that these are current Premier League players. So when you said, is he a Premier League player, it was a bit unfair. I'll give you a question up on that.
Right, so I have one more question right at the end.
Yeah, you've got one more question.
Okay.
Easy now, isn't it? Come on.
Is it John McGinn?
Yes!
Yeah.
Big John McGinn. Stunning.